Alright, you guys, we're doing another video.
And she goes. Some dudes might be watching this.
Huh?
You said chicas.
Oh, I thought I said hello, everybody.
Weirdo.
I don't know. Whoever's watching.
Weirdo.
So today, we're going to dive into the Kennedys a little bit. Kind of the conspiracy theories as well as their sibling that they forgot. Alrighty. So first it's going to be the curse, and then it's going to talk about Rosemary. So, the Kennedy curse is a term for a series of deaths, calamities involving members of the American Kennedy family. Ted Kennedy publicly wondered whether a curse actually did hang over all the Kennedys during his own testimony about the Chippewa incident in 1969. However, skeptics argue that many of the events are normal and it is not improbable for a large extended family to experience them.
Very
I
interesting.
think there's a curse, but that's my opinion.
So I'm not marked?
No.
August 12th, 1944, Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. died when his plane exploded over East Suffolk, England, as part of Project Anvil during World War II. I heard about that.
On May 13th, 1948, Kathleen Cavendish, Martians of Harrington, daughter of Joseph Sr. and Rose Kennedy, died in a plane crash in France. There's a lot of assassinations and plane crashes.
August 9th, 1963, Patrick Bouvier, is it Bouvier?
I don't remember.
Kennedy died of infant respiratory distress syndrome, or SIDS. 2 days after his premature birth, which itself occurred on the 20th anniversary of his father's World War II rescue after the sinking of motor torpedo boat PT-109. Jackie missed the funeral because she was still recovering from the C-section at Otis Air Force Base. Oh, that sucks. Miss your own kid's funeral right after you have him?
November 22nd, 1963, U.S. President John F. Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, Texas by Lee Harvey Oswald. Oswald was shot dead by Jack Ruby 2 days later before he could stand trial. In 1964, the Warren Commission concluded that Oswald was a lone assassin, but in 1979, the United States House Select Committee on Assassination concluded that the assassination was a result of a conspiracy and that Oswald did not act alone. Didn't we do a video on JFK?
I think we did a video on conspiracies.
Okay.
But we hadn't figured out conclusively who did it. Just that there was a conspiracy that this happened or that happened or that happened. June 5th, 1968, U.S. Senator Robert F. Kennedy was shot by assassin Sirhan Sirhan in Los Angeles immediately following Kennedy's victory in the California Democratic presidential primary. He died the following day. Sirhan pleaded guilty to the murder and is serving a life sentence at the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility.
See, a Kennedy should not try to become president. It's bad luck.
Next one's my birthday.
That's what they say, though. That's what part of the curse is that Kennedys can't become president. As soon as they start becoming president, something happens to them. April 25th, 1984, David A. Kennedy died of cocaine and...
That's my third birthday.
Pethidine overdose. Pethidine overdose.
I've never heard of it.
In the Palm Beach, Florida hotel room. Wow. They're so, freaking ritzy. I'm surprised anybody did any drugs and overdose.
July 16th, 1999, John F. Kennedy Jr. died when his plane was...
What was December?
Oh, it was on the crease, sorry. My bad.
This is all in a timeline, baby. We have to keep it a timeline.
It was on the crease, I didn't see it.
I do.
I'm sorry, people, please don't hate me. December 31st, 1997, Michael Lemoyne Kennedy died in a skiing accident in Aspen, Colorado. What a way to go.
July 16th, 1999, John F. Kennedy Jr. died when his plane he was piloting, a Piper Saratoga, crashed into the Atlantic Ocean on the coast of Martha's Vineyard due to pilot error and septal disorientation. His wife and sister-in-law were also on board and also died. I didn't remember that his wife was on there.
Ooh, that sucks.
I remember it happening, but I didn't remember that his wife was in there too.
That's weird. September 16th, 2011, Cara Kennedy died of a heart attack while exercising in a Washington, D.C. health club at age 51. Cara had reportedly suffered from lung cancer 9 years earlier, but she had recovered after the removal of part of her right lung.
Jeez.
Why would you continue to try to work out when you have part of a lung missing?
Because it can kind of regrow and get better.
What, like liver?
Mm-hmm. May 16th, 2012, Mary Richardson Kennedy died by suicide on the grounds of her home in Bedford, Westchester County, New York. Suicide, I'm sure.
Right.
Just like Marilyn Monroe was suicide, which we'll get into next month.
She didn't kill herself. She had everything going for her. No way she would have killed herself. August 1st, 2019. Do you know how to say that name?
Seoris Racine. I don't know.
I'm probably going to butcher this name. Correct me if I'm wrong. Seoris. I don't know. Some chick. Rosen Kennedy Hill, 22-year-old granddaughter of Robert F. Kennedy, was found dead of a suspected drug overdose at the Kennedy compound in Hyannisport, Cape Cod, Massachusetts. Yeah, drug overdose.
Rosemary Kennedy was often believed to have been intellectually disabled, and due to her severe mood swings and a worry that she would damage the Kennedy reputation, her family reputation, her father Joseph arranged a secret for her to undergo a lobotomy. The lobotomy instead left her unable to, which we'll get into in more detail.
We've actually done a conspiracy theory about her, so go back and watch our conspiracy theory video if you want to know more about her.
But I've got a whole bit.
I know, I'm just saying, like, until then.
Yeah. Well, this is all one video.
Okay. Still watch the video. It's good.
We're going to do a coincidence one too, which is going to be fun.
December 19th, 1961, Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. suffered a massive stroke which left him paralyzed on his right side. Thereafter, he suffered from aphasia, which severely affected his ability to speak.
It can also affect the way you swallow and stuff.
And breathe. It just depends on how it hits you. Ow.
June 19th, 1964, U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy was involved in a plane crash in which one of his aides and the pilot were killed. Ted was pulled from the wreckage by fellow Senator Birch Bayh, and spent weeks in his hospital recovering from a broken back, a punctured lung, broken rib, and an internal bleeding. I thought this was in chronological order, I guess.
Ooh. That sounds painful. July 18th, 1969, in the Chappaquiddick incident, Ted Kennedy accidentally drove his car off a bridge in Chappaquiddick Island, which fatally trapped his 28-year-old passenger Mary Jo Kopechne inside. Ted pleaded guilty to a charge of leaving the scene of an accident causing personal injury in his televised statement a week later. Ted stated that Ted stated that on the night of the incident, he wondered whether some awful curse did actually hang over all the Kennedys. Sorry, my eyes hit the wrong line at the wrong time, and I couldn't read it for some reason.
August 13th, 1973, Joseph P. Kennedy II was the driver of a Jeep that crashed and left his passenger, Pam Kelly, paralyzed. David A. Kennedy was injured.
Ooh.
Sorry, this is a lot of tragedies in one family. I don't care who you are.
November 17th, 1973, Edward M. Kennedy Jr., then age 12, had to have his right leg surgically amputated due to bone cancer. He underwent a long, difficult, experimental 2-year drug treatment to cure the cancer. My God, that's a bad one. Poor kid. We just read about the kid. It's April 1st, 1990.
April 1st, 1991, William Kennedy Smith was arrested and charged with the rape of a young woman at the Kennedy estate in Palm Beach, Florida. The subsequent trial attracted extensive media coverage. Smith was acquitted. Of course he was acquitted. That's what happens when you have money. Okay, so now we're going to get into Rosemary.
Okay. Let's see.
Her life was very tragic.
Rosemary Kennedy, September 13th, 1918 to January 7th, 2005, was the oldest daughter born to Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. and Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy. She was the sister of President of the United States John F. Kennedy and Senators Robert F. Kennedy and Ted Kennedy. Oh, that's it. Okay.
Rosemary Kennedy was born at her parents' home in Brooklyn, Massachusetts. She was the third child and first daughter of Joseph P. Kennedy Sr., Rose Fitzgerald. She was named after her mother and was commonly called Rosemary or Rosie.
Weirdness.
During her birth.
I got it. During her birth, the doctor was not immediately available, and the nurse ordered Rose Kennedy to keep her legs closed, forcing the baby's head to stay in the birth canal for 2 hours.
I'm sorry, a nurse can deliver a baby just as well as a doctor can, especially when it's willing to just come out.
Yeah, well, apparently back then they didn't think that was the case.
The action resulted in a harmful loss of oxygen. As Rosemary began to grow, her parents noticed that she was reaching the basic development steps an infant or toddler normally reach at a certain month or year. She wasn't developing to those standards.
At 2 years old, she had a hard time sitting up, crawling, and learning to walk. Ooh. See, now that is the nurse's fault. I would have sued.
Accounts of Rosemary's life indicated that she was intellectually disabled, although some have raised questions about the Kennedys' accounts of the nature and scope of her disability. A
biographer wrote that Rose Kennedy did not confide in her friends and that she pretended her daughter was developing typically, with relatives other than the immediate family knowing nothing of Rosemary's reported low IQ. Really?
Despite the help of tutors, Rosemary had trouble learning to read and write. At age 11, she was sent to Pennsylvania boarding school for the intellectually disabled.
Interesting. At age 15, Rosemary was sent to the Sacred Heart Convent in Elmhurst, Providence, Rhode Island, where she was educated separately from the other students.
That happened a lot back then. 2 nuns and a special teacher, Miss Newton, worked with her all day in a separate classroom. The Kennedys gave the school new tennis court for their efforts.
Oh, jeez. Her reading, writing, spelling, and counting skills were reported to be at a 4th grade level. During this period, her mother arranged for her older brother John to accompany her to a tea dance. Thanks to him, she appeared not different at all during the dance. Really? Not different at all, huh?
Rosemary read few books, but could read Winnie the Pooh. Diaries written by her in the late 1930s and published in the 1980s reveal a young woman whose life was filled with outings to the opera, tea dances, dress fittings, and other social interests. I want to read that. It'll be interesting.
Wait, she wrote a book?
Mm-hmm. Diaries.
Oh, her diaries. I was going to say, she wrote a book? I didn't quite hear everything. Kennedy accompanied her family to the coronation of Pope Pius XII in Rome in 1939. She also visited the White House. Huh.
Well, I made it for brothers.
Huh.
Kennedy's parents told Women's Day that she was studying to be a kindergarten teacher, and parents was told that while she had an interest in a social welfare work. She is said to harbor a secret longing to go on the stage. When the Boston Globe requested an interview with Rosemary, her father's assistant prepared a response, which Rosemary copied out laboriously. I have always had serious taste and understand life is not great given us just for enjoyment. For some time past, I have been studying the well-known psychological method of Dr. Maria Montessori, and got my degree in teaching last year.
Montessori, it's a type of school now. In 1938, Kennedy was presented to King George VI and Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace during her father's service as the United States ambassador to the United Kingdom.
So, like, her father literally wrote out a speech for her to say, and that's what she said.
Apparently she could speak low enough, as long as she knew what she was saying.
Then, Kennedy practiced a complicated royal curtsy for hours. At the event, she tripped and nearly fell. Rose Kennedy never discussed the incident and treated the debut as a triumph. The crowd made no sign, and the king and queen smiled as if nothing had happened. Queen Elizabeth's a really nice person.
Yeah.
Even though she probably killed Princess Diana.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Most likely. According to Eunice Kennedy Shriver, when Rosemary returned to the United States from England in 1940, she regressed. Shriver later stated that Rosemary became increasingly irritable and difficult at age 22. Yeah, probably because she was being treated like a child, and she didn't want to be.
Rosemary would often experience convulsions and fly into violent rages in which she would hit and injure others during this period. Probably because she was autistic.
Well, that too. But, I mean, if you're 22 years old, you're legally an adult, you don't want to be treated like a child, and that's probably how they were treated. Like a child because you're autistic. But I'm saying even with people with mental disabilities want to be treated like an adult.
I know.
After being expelled from a summer camp in western Massachusetts and staying only a few months at a Philadelphia boarding school, Rosemary was sent to a convent in Washington, D.C. Rosemary began sneaking out of the convent school at night.
Do you blame her? I wouldn't want to be there.
Surprised they didn't think she was possessed.
The nuns at the convent thought that Rosemary might be involved with men and that she could contract a sexually transmitted disease or become pregnant.
Okay. That can happen to anybody. Her occasionally erratic behavior frustrated her parents. Joseph P. Kennedy was especially worried that his daughter's behavior would shame and embarrass the family and damage his and his children's political careers. They should just give up on those political careers, damn it.
Apparently everybody dies when they try to become a politician in that family. In November 1941, when Rosemary Kennedy was 23 and hence legally an adult, doctors told Joseph P. Kennedy that a form of psychosurgery known as a lobotomy would help calm her mood swings and stop her occasional violent outbursts.
Here we go. Somebody's different. Let's make it worse.
That and electric shock therapy are the two of the worst things they used to do in those places.
But isn't that how it has been?
They still do electric shock therapy, though. And they still do lobotomies on special occasions.
Well, I've heard that electric shock therapy in certain situations can be beneficial at low levels.
Yeah, they still do certain therapies.
Low levels. Because, when I did physical therapy, they did electroshock therapy on my arm.
Well, that's different, but this is like to your temple.
Oh. He decided that his daughter should have the lobotomy performed. However, he did not inform his wife Rose of this until after the procedure was completed. Because Rosemary had been diagnosed as mentally retarded. Oh, I hate that word.
Well, that's how it was back then.
I know. Only his consent was necessary.
James W. Watts, who carried out the procedure with Walter Freeman, both of George Washington University School of Medicine, described what happened next as quoted by Ronald Kessler in his book, The Sins of the Father, Joseph P. Kennedy and the Dynasty he founded in the only interview the doctor ever gave. We went through the top of the head. I think Rosemary was awake. They usually were, so that they knew how far to go.
Right.
She had a mild tranquilizer. I made a surgical incision on the brain through the skull. It was near the front. It was on both sides. We just made a small incision, no more than an inch. The instrument Dr. Watts used looked like a butter knife. He's surprised it wasn't like an ice pick. He swung it up and down to cut brain tissue. He put an instrument inside, he said. As Dr. Watts cut, Dr. Freeman asked Rosemary some questions. For example, he asked her to recite the Lord's Prayer or sing God Bless America or count backwards. We made an estimate on how far to cut based on how she responded. When Rosemary began to become incoherent, they stopped. If you guys ever watch One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, it's really good to see how the electric shock therapy and then a lobotomy, what happens with that as well.
That description of how they did the lobotomy,
and I will show pictures.
Fucking disgusts me. That's
He
awful.
also used to go between the eyes.
Yeah, no, I've seen those, but it still disgusts me.
I'll show pictures.
Like, somebody's acting differently. Let's fuck up their brain completely so they can't
That,
ever
or they
think
used to put
right
them in a
again.
sanitarium, which we'll probably do a sanitarium video. But they'd hide them in the sanitarium, or they'd hide them in the attic, like they never existed.
It's just, ugh.
Sanitariums were bad back then.
It quickly became apparent that the procedure had not been successful. Kennedy's mental capacity diminished to that of a 2-year-old child. She could not walk or speak intelligibly and was incontinent. See what happens when you try to fuck with people's brains? God.
After the lobotomy, Rosemary was immediately institutionalized. She had initially lived for several years at Craig House, a private psychiatric hospital an hour north of New York City.
That disgusts me.
There's a book about her, too. I read some part of it, but I haven't read the whole thing. It's very interesting.
In 1949, she was relocated to Jefferson, Wisconsin, where she lived for the rest of her life on the grounds of St. Coletta School for Exceptional Children, formerly known as St. Coletta Institute for Backward Youth.
Troubled youth, probably.
It just says backward youth.
Yeah, but I think that's...
Archbishop Richard Cushing had told her father about St. Coletta's, an institution for more than 300 people with disabilities, and her father traveled to and built a private house for her about a mile outside of St. Coletta's main campus near Alverno House, which was designed for adults who needed lifelong care.
The nuns called the house the Kennedy Cottage. 2 Catholic nuns, Sister Margaret Ann and Sister Leona, provided her care along with a student and a woman who worked on ceramics with Rosemary 3 nights a week. God bless those people, seriously.
Yeah, like, can you imagine having to take care of a fully grown 2-year-old? That's basically what she was.
Yeah,
a fully grown 2-year-old.
No, I'm just saying because they were the only ones that were there for her at the end.
Well, that's what, but I'm just saying, like, not only did they have to take care of her, they were technically her only family members, even though they weren't biological. Mm-hmm. It's awful.
It happens all so much, and even nowadays, people forget their family and their places.
So, Rosemary.
Mm-hmm.
Rosemary had a car that could be used to take her for rides, and a dog whom she could take on walks. Take on walks. She couldn't even walk.
In response to her condition, Rosemary's parents separated her from her family.
Jeez Louise. Rose Kennedy did not visit her for 20 years. Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. did not visit his daughter at the institution. But he built her a house, and that makes up for not visiting her, right?
In Rosemary, the Hidden Kennedy Daughter, author Kate Clifford Larson stated that Rosemary's lobotomy was hidden from the family for 20 years.
Ridiculous. While her older brother John was campaigning for re-election for the Senate in 1958, the Kennedy family explained away her absence by claiming she was reclusive. The
Kennedy family did not publicly explain her absence until 1961 after John had been elected president. The Kennedys did not reveal that she was institutionalized because of a failed lobotomy, but said she was deemed mentally retarded. I mean, it wasn't the president's Kennedy's fault or any of the siblings. They knew nothing about any of it.
Yeah, it was just the father.
And the mother didn't even know.
Yeah, the mother may not have visited her much, but that was more of a
the father took control over her, they
Yeah.
probably said you can't see her.
Probably said, you don't, I'm not even going to tell you where she is. Just
Joseph
that
was
she's
kind of a
not there.
douche. I might do a video and do Joseph, but he was kind of a douche.
I might do a video on douche.
He was an asshole.
In 1961, after Joseph P. Kennedy Sr. suffered a stroke that left him unable to speak, Rosemary's siblings were made aware of her location. Ooh. The shit gets deeper.
Her lobotomy did not become public knowledge until 1987, the year before I was born.
Following Rosemary's father's death in 1969, the Kennedys gradually involved Rosemary in family life again.
Yeah, but like I said, it took the controlling piece of shit to die. Rosemary was occasionally taken to visit relatives in Florida and Washington, D.C. and to her childhood home on Cape Cod.
Let's see, if the father had died sooner, or been less of an asshole, her mother would have been like, we're not putting her in an institution, we'll just hire nurses.
The first time she saw her mother, she was so angry at her mother, she literally pushed and hid her away. Like, she hit her and pushed her away. She didn't want anything to do with her mother.
Yeah, but it wasn't her mother's fault.
No, but to her, it was just everything. Like, you haven't seen me for 20-something years. Fuck you, like...
I'm surprised she remembered who she was, though, to be honest.
Well, 2-year-olds remember your face. I mean, kids remember.
Yeah, but they may have messed up some of her memories, too, the way they were just...
I don't remember what part.
The way they were just kind of moving things around in there, like...
Controls certain parts of you. I don't know if it controls your brain.
Oh. By that time, Rosemary had learned to walk again, but did so with a limp. She never regained the ability to speak clearly, and her arm was palsied. Ew, that's painful.
Her condition is sometimes credited as the inspiration for Eunice Kennedy Shriver, who later found the Special Olympics, although Shriver told the New York Times in 1995 that this was not entirely the case.
Didn't, Terminator, what's his name?
Yeah, he married a Kennedy.
That's what I thought. What's her name, Marie Shriver or something like that? Mm-hmm. Rosemary Kennedy died from natural causes on January 7, 2005, at the age of 86. Kennedy died at the Fort Atkinson Memorial Hospital in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, with her surviving siblings, sisters Jean, Eunice, and Patricia, and brother Ted by her side.
So she lived from the age of 22 or so to 86 in that condition, in a nunnery, basically. Or not a nunnery, but a old person's home, whatever, convalescent home.
Yeah.
The whole time in that condition, 20 years of that without family.
Yeah.
She was buried beside her parents in Hollywood Cemetery in Brooklyn, Massachusetts.
I wouldn't want to be buried next to them.
No.
After what they put her through.
What are your thoughts on the Kennedys? I do think it's a conspiracy.
Maybe it's a curse because of things that they've done, and not just to...
It all happened before Rosemary. It all happened after Rosemary. Maybe
it's because of what they did to her.
Maybe that's...
I mean, that was pretty messed up.
Because...
She went from being at least functional, but kind of, angry and stuff, which of course, can be attributed to many different things, to all of a sudden being like a 2-year-old.
Yeah, because the first one happened in 1944 was when she...
When was she born?
That was when she, when the first curse happened. And then, let's see.
When was she born?
She was born in 1918.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out when they did the lobotomy.
Lobotomy.
Let me see. 41. In 1941. And then, like I said, the first The earliest one they've got here of the curse was 1944.
So all of this is because of lobotomizing someone that didn't need lobotomizing. No wonder their family's so fucked up. All those people died, and it was all because her dad was an asshole and had her lobotomized. What the hell? It's disgusting, is what it is.
Yeah, the whole thing.
So basically, the sins of the father.
Like, all of them.
Right?
Literally happened. Because she got lobotomized at 41.
Baby. The sins of the father.
And the earliest one was in 44.
No conspiracy needed. There's your proof right there. She was lobotomized, and then shit started happening to the family, and that's why John F. Kennedy got killed.
I never looked at that before. That's insane. That's when
Now
all the
we
crazy
know.
deaths started happening and stuff.
Aren't you glad you had me on this? I'm the reason we thought of that.
That's interesting. What are your guys' thoughts?
Please, tell us what's going on. Tell us that we're wrong, or tell us
Either
that
there's
we're
a
right.
spirit in that family causing shit to happen, or something's happening. Karma.
I think it's karma because of what they did to Rosemary.
It's Rosemary. Like I said, there'll be pictures and stuff. It's a very beautiful, sweet-looking woman, and that's rotten.
Before the lobotomy, she was at least functional.
And you notice Shriver's still alive. And she's the one that primarily was in her life.
Are you talking about Maria Shriver?
Mm-hmm. Oh. I think she's still alive. Or she might have passed away, but she lived. Nothing tragically really happened to her.
No, I think that her tragedy was marrying.
No, that's a different.
Oh, I thought you were talking about somebody else.
I'm talking about the Eunice.
Oh, the other one. Yeah.
I think she's still alive. You should look up if she's still alive. I think so. I think she still does the Special Olympics. But I know Eunice Shriver. Eunice Kennedy Shriver. But I'm pretty sure that, and it doesn't really affect too many women, but...
American philanthropist. Philanthropist. Died August 11th, 2009.
Okay. But she's still... Was she died of?
It doesn't say. Apparently she had physical disabilities too, though.
No, that she helped with physical disabilities.
Oh, my stomach hurts. Diabetic want food.
God dang it.
You know, it'd probably be quicker just to put in how she died. Like, how did she die?
Undisclosed ailment. Her relatives were called to the hospital. But she was 88 years old.
So maybe she died of natural causes.
Yeah.
Maybe,
like I said, she actually did a lot for her sister and stuff. So
and also,
that brought back the karma.
That was after little one died. What's her name? Rosemary? Mm-hmm. After she passed, it may have just kind of ended the curse. Yeah. Well, at least she didn't die of a
2005, she had suffered a stroke and a broken hip.
Yeah, but those are minor compared to all the shit that happened to the rest of the family, right? So that would be her cousin or her sister?
That's her sister.
Ah.
Her cousin is the one that married...
okay, so that's Maria Shriver's mom? Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. Mm-hmm. So she's the niece of John F. Kennedy? Mm-hmm. Really? I didn't realize Maria Shriver was that close to John F. Kennedy.
Yeah, I'm
pretty sure. I thought she was further past. I mean, further down the line.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Maria Shriver is her sister, her daughter.
That is
Bobby
nuts.
Shriver, Timothy Shriver,
Mark Shriver, and Anthony Shriver. Wow, that is crazy, though. It didn't occur to me that Maria Shriver was so close to John F. Kennedy in the family tree. I thought she was further down, like a cousin or something. That is nuts. Well, now you know.
Because JFK is her brother. It's Eunice's brother.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, I didn't But I'm saying I didn't realize that Maria Shriver was so close on the family tree to JFK. I thought that she was like a cousin or something. I didn't realize that her mother was Eunice.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then I never even bothered to look that up. So,
anyways,
she's the one that started the Special Olympics.
That's what I said. You didn't listen to what I read.
I could only hear parts of it. Well, that's awesome. I've helped with the Special Olympics before.
That's what I said. I think she brought back her family's karma.
Yeah.
By doing the Special Olympics and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, she at least had a kind heart.
And she helped a lot with her sister.
Yeah.
When she found out what happened to her sister.
Yep. That's crazy, though.
I think that's why she died at 88 and not so young.
And what seems like natural causes. Mm-hmm. Well, hope you enjoyed the video.
Like and subscribe.
Let us know how we're doing, please. We need the comments. We don't get enough of them.
Or enough likes, and I don't know who's disliking my videos, but it's rude.
They're probably not even watching this long into it. They're probably not even watching it. They're probably just going, dislike. Dislike, dislike.
I think I have a feeling who it is, but she needs to get over it, though. Anyways.
Bye, y'all.
Like and subscribe.